Hi, my name is Ahmed Mahmoud, and I'm a postdoc in the Nai-Kong Cheung Lab and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. My dissertation research focused on cancer plasticity and colorectal cancer, and my work now focuses on targeted radiotherapy in prostate cancer. Well, some of the accomplishments I'm most proud of, so I got the NSF fellowship, the GRFP in my senior year of undergrad, which was really exciting and kind of set me on this science path and made me think, oh, maybe I can actually do this. I'm also proud to have received the HHMI Gilliam Fellowship. And during my thesis research, I published on several collaborative papers, which was important for me when I first started was to focus on teamwork and having other people on my papers and be on other people's papers, just kind of building that scientific communities. And it formed a lot of strong relationships, both personally and professionally, which was another important goal for me to kind of find a community and build it. So for me, I think the challenge that I think about a lot is actually working towards the job that I thought I wanted during my time in grad school. And then when I finally got to the job after graduating, I was like, wow, this isn't really the best fit for me. So when I started grad school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do after. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat. You know, they go to grad school and then go from there. And what I eventually did was I landed on working investment banking, which is a role a lot of people or a lot of grad students in New York City do after their PhDs. Mostly because it's a hybrid kind of science and finance role. And a lot of people gravitate towards something called equity research, where you end up working with biotech. So I thought that was really cool. And I think my failure in this context was during career development in grad school, I was really tunneled because I really thought of this is what I'm going to do. I was, super gung-ho, like this is it. And didn't really try to expand my horizons, didn't really broaden my career development. And I put myself a little bit in a box. So I think the major failure here was I didn't really hedge my bets. I didn't go into seminars, for example, on how to find biotech, pharma academic jobs. So I was just really focused. And I think, this was compounded also during how I was preparing for this job in itself. I wasn't really paying attention to what people are telling me. So I did a lot of informational interview, which I recommend everyone do for the role they're interested in. And during those informational interview, in my head, it's kind of the hypothesis has been proven that this job is for me. I wasn't really collecting unbiased data. I was really focused. So when I asked questions, they were doctored and very biased. Like, why is this job going to be so good for me? Instead of listening to people's actual experiences, and a lot of people warned me, for example, that it's not as science focused as I think it will be, or other factors that I didn't really care to consider. So that I would describe as the biggest challenge I had during grad school. And I think, for that period of time was a bit jarring because I was so sure of myself throughout grad school, right? Like this is the job for me, this is what I'm going to do. And then you get there and I left it after a few months because I really missed the bench and doing the science. And it was jarring to leave that space after fixating on it for almost 2 years. So I was definitely exhausted, right? Because I was, again, gung-ho. I didn't take any time off between grad school and this job, which was very demanding. But now I had done all this work and it feels like I came up with nothing. So I was definitely exhausted and definitely quite disappointed. And it's not like that I felt shortchanged because everyone was honest about what the role was going to be. And I think I was well prepared for it. So it's just that things didn't really click for me. And I think one of the things that when I reflected on this whole experience was that I could have put in a little bit more work. When I say put in the work to broaden the horizons, that came in many different forms. For example, building better relationship with mentors, PIs for potential future postdocs, right? Because I ended up doing a postdoc anyways. And I did end up in the lab that I wanted to and it ended up working out, but it was a lot harder than it needed to be. And I think if I had thought ahead, right, I made my life easier and kind of circumvented a lot of that exhaustion, disappointment, took it a little slower in grad school, take a few months extra to graduate or something, since I didn't really need to coordinate my graduation with the recruitment cycle for this job. So I think that was a few things that came up a lot when I was reflecting on it. So some of the things that were most helpful during this time is actually what I built during grad school. So I mentioned one of the proudest things that I did was one of the things that I'm most proud of was building a community of through both personal and professional relationships and reaching out to those mentors because, after I quit my job, I had a few weeks of nothing to do. So all I did was grab lunches with friends, meet with mentors, PIs, kind of talk about options, being more open-minded and unbiased about what's out there for people with a PhD. So just reaching out to my support system was incredibly helpful. And I vented a little bit, but I also sought guidance, advice, and just, talking through things is really super helpful in these times when you're just, especially because like I mentioned, I was a little jarred being after getting there to the job after 18 months of fixating on it and suddenly it's no longer there. So it was nice to like talk through all these things. And then I think for me it was also important to take just some time to regroup and reflect on how to avoid making this or making it more difficult on myself than it needs to be. So I looked back on how did I get to the point where I'm fixating on this one job, or how could I potentially avoid something like that in the future? How can I better hedge my bets? Those were the most helpful things that I did. So the first thing I did, when I was saying I took some time to reflect, was I actually looked back on the notes that I took during those informational interviews. And I wanted to see if the factors that I didn't like about the job was I even aware of those, or were those a surprise? And when I looked at my notes, it's funny because they were all there, right? Like the people told me it wasn't as science focused. People told me it was a super demanding job and more finance heavy and all the things that ended up not working out for me. And I'm like, okay, why did I have the expectation going into the job if I have all this information in here? Why did I build this idealistic image of this career in my head? And I realized there was that disconnect, right? Because I was just fixating on it and, didn't really approach as a scientist where I had a hypothesis or a theory and I was seeking out help. I really just wanted people to reinforce my original ideas that this job is going to be great. I think mostly it was also because I was exhausted from grad school when everyone is kind of trying to ask you what you're going to do after and you don't have an answer. So sometimes you just knee-jerk reaction just to choose something. And I think that was it for me. So I think, learning about that, to reflect and to be patient and to listen to people was really important. And the second thing that I learned from this challenge was how important and supportive a community can be, because I wasn't really the type of person to reach out to people. But in this case, I was like, oh, might as well, because a lot of them either served as references, helped connect me with people for these informational interviews. So it was a very community focused act almost, I was like, okay, you guys all helped me get this job, or you helped me in my career development. I'll keep you updated. And those relationships grew more. And I think that was just a really nice thing, kind of the silver lining of all that, because I still talk to people that I reached out to just because of this. Yeah, and I think for me, one of the things that I came out is figuring out what was important for me for the job. For example, for this career, I knew there was going to be a poor work-life balance. And in my head, I was like, oh, it's going to be fine. Grad school was hard, so it's okay if I continue this path. And then after a few months, you're like, wait, am I just going to do this forever? Or should I really focus on what is important for me and prioritize that? So that's another thing that I learned, that I need to be honest about what I want and not just kind of try to tailor my wants to whatever career that I think I may need. So I think just being open-minded, being flexible and receptive is something that I learned. So I think the two key advice I would give grad students is don't limit yourself. People always tell you like, oh, the world is your oyster, you can do whatever, the sky's the limit, you can do whatever you want. It is true. But I'm not going to pretend that doesn't come with its own form of pressures and, executive dysfunction, right? When you have so many choices, you don't know what to do next. So I completely understand that. So I would say don't limit yourself and listen to those people who tell you that the sky's the limit, because that is true. You can really do anything with your PhD. But the second thing I would say is take your time, right? Because I don't know, for some reason, when people say that, comes with the implication, so just pick something, right? The sky's the limit, so just pick something and stick with it. But in reality, at least that's how I interpreted it. But in reality, it's okay to take your time. If your PhD will take a few more months or even years than your peers, that's fine. Everyone's on their own journey. Just do what's right for you. So I think, just make sure you're taking your time and don't rush into anything and don't limit yourself. And I think it's important to also be adventurous. It's okay to try new things. For example, for myself, this financial, which ended up not working out, was still really cool to just discover this whole world of biotech finance that I had no idea existed. And I think that will help me in the long run and has already been helping me in different ways. So it's okay to be a little adventurous, okay to try and fail. Obviously, we're scientists, we deal with failures every day, and that's part of the thing, part of the job, but it's not just science, it's also like that. We're gonna fail a lot, and that's okay. And obviously just reframing those failures as new opportunities to learn. And I think just in that hand in hand with being adventurous, it's okay to look for internships or positions that may not align with something, with what you think you wanted to do in the future. So if you're an academic, it's okay to kind of move on to a biotech or finance role if that's just something you want to try out. And I think I want to emphasize the idea of like taking your time, because that's kind of what the root, I wouldn't say flaw, but kind of root flaw I had when I was locked into this career, is I really wanted to rush through grad school, because we finish undergrad and then we're like, okay, yay, more school, and then you're just like, oh, I want to just get into the real world. But it is the real world to be in grad school, right? You're building those connections. Just because it has school in it or degree in it doesn't mean you're stagnating as compared to other 27, 28, or 30-year-olds in your life who are no longer in school. Seeing your friends getting promoted while you're still a student, it did drive me a little crazy, but I think it's okay, like I said, to just focus on your own journey. And even if it takes you a little extra time to graduate as compared to your peers, whether it's like your class or the class below you or whatever, that's okay. I think in the long run, it really does pay off to be patient. Thank you for watching Failsafe Science. My name is Ahmed, and I hope my story helps graduate students feel that it's okay to take your time.